Hello and welcome back to another episode of the MXGP Podcast Show, and one that I am particularly excited to record. I had many extravagant ways to intro this episode. It's been on my mind for over a week, but ultimately I went with a tried and tested normal routine because we just need to get into the crux of all that went on in Australia, and that includes champions crowned, historic moments, controversial moments, paddock drama, paddock celebration. Honestly, this may be the most jam-packed, information-filled episode of the MXGP Podcast Show that you've ever seen. And that is reason to be excited. And as you can tell, I, Lewis Phillips, your host, am excited. And I'm wondering if my cohort from the Paddock Pass podcast and published author of Motorcycle Grand Prix Insider Stories from World Championship Racing, shares my enthusiasm. So what says you, Adam Wheeler?
G'day, mate.
Well, I was actually going to start this podcast with... I was just going to start it with a cold open with, I come from a land down under where beer does flow and men chunder, and then get into it. But I kind of lost confidence. Oh, you laughed. That would have been good, apparently. But yeah, excited, matching my enthusiasm?
Yes, I have questions. Lots of questions. Goodness, where do I start? I mean, can we get straight into it? And how do you rank this World Championship compared to 2021?
Wait, are we talking MXGP, MX2?
The whole sensation. I mean, we're kind of in the bubbling aftermath of like a 20 Grand Prix season. I know 2021 had the shadow, is that the right word, of sort of COVID rearranged calendar. But then this one was just like full gas all the way. I know we had a championship finale as well in 2024 between two riders, just like we did in Australia this past weekend. But again, I mean, on one hand, you look at the point standings and it's nearly like 1,000 points. It seems ridiculous, but something about the formula works because, again, we're going right down to the wire and getting these sort of crazy scenes. And you must have been somewhat nervous, Lewis, because working in Vegas for the SMX finale and all the sensationalism that was happening there, and then you go to the other extreme of the time zones and there's more of it going on.
Yeah, to that point, how rare to have SMX and MXGP running at exactly the same time. I had 450 Moto 1 at SMX in front of me visually, and then my phone leant up against a can of Coke with MX2 Moto 1 on. Like, my little brain, which struggles to comprehend stuff at the best of times, was really struggling with this overload of information and excitement because, let's be honest, maybe more often than not in SMX and MXGP, the racing is a little mundane and there isn't much to take from it. Not on this occasion. Both series pulled out all the stops and had arguably some of their most notable moments.
Yeah, 100%. The thing I took most out of that last comment is, were you drinking the can of Coke or were you on the Monster? Because it's either or with you.
I was drinking the can of Coke, which made it awkward because every time I reached for it, I had to hold the phone, drink, can, phone. It was a real process.
I'm hoping it was the one and only can of the day and it wasn't the 5th or the 6th.
Well, we don't have a gear sponsor here, so I can talk about this freely. I was in the Fly Racing suite, in which there was
I've heard about this.
The best dessert I've ever had in my life. A flapjack jam combination of some sort. Don't know what I'd call it exactly, and therefore I don't know how to find it again. It came and it went from my life, but I'll never forget it, and I hope it never forgets
Sugar
me.
overload?
No, it wasn't. It was subtle. Some subtle tones there. Just...
Okay. Just dessert, or did you go for the 3-courser?
Well, the burger was incredible. As far as a track supper, the burger, again, the only way I know to comment on food is subtle tones. Again, some subtle tones there that really hit the notes of my body. And yeah, really, maybe that's why I was in such a good mood. Of course.
Lewis Ramsey over here. You're going to be livid the next time you go to a Supercross and it's not the same high standards. You're just going to be living in the Fly Racing hospitality.
Honestly, little known Lewis fact, I am a massive... Jeffrey Herlings, Chase Sexton, Ben Watson, Gordon Ramsay. I'm a big Gordon Ramsay fan. Honestly, if there's any content with Gordon Ramsay in it, I stop and consume it.
I thought you were about to say that you're a foodie.
No.
To which point I was going to say absolute rubbish. Because even I remember you walking into the MXGP media room with a plastic carrier bag full of rubbish, teeth rot.
Well, things are going to change here shortly. Things are going to change.
Real quick tangent. The Gordon Ramsay restaurant in London's Heathrow Airport, Terminal 5, gave me the worst breakfast I've ever had. And I paid like £12 for the privilege a few years ago.
I have to admit that when I moved here, like the flight where I was making the official move, Heathrow decided to treat myself to some Gordon Ramsay cuisine, and it was terrible. So, but I don't blame him. I don't blame him. I will never blame him. Similar to the same way Jeffrey and Ben can do no wrong in my eyes. I've completely forgotten where we were at with this. But no, difficult
2021
for me.
I asked you.
Oh, yeah, yes. Of course. Nothing can ever compete against 2021. You could have a championship that is arguably better. Instead of 2 riders tied at the last round, you can have 4. And 2021 will still be the apple of my eye because it was still the first time we had it. It was still, you never forget your first.
Yeah, I've spoken about it before, but in 2021 in that Mantova press room, you know, while there's big celebrations going on outside and you have Romain Febvre sitting with his head in his hands and Tim Geiger just staring into space at the press conference table in 2nd and 3rd place, just waiting for Jeffrey Herlings to come in. You know, the big sort of celebrations going on outside and these two just coping with the end. I don't know, it was just like this tableau or this kind of scene of dejection, disappointment, calm. It was a really, really weird sporting scenario. In one way, I'm kind of glad that I was there to experience it because you rarely see kind of moments like that in pro sports. But I think, as I said, Lewis, 2021 was pretty special just because we had 3 to 4 riders going at it all the way to the end. But then I think this year was also great because there was also some standout storylines. Romain Febvre's 10 years between championships hasn't been done before. You know, the fact that it was like the old hand on a bike that hasn't won like a title this century in the Premier class going against a young buck, you know, a rookie who has so much potential on class was another one. And then you had riders like Geiger and Herlings sort of chipping in with results that kind of didn't rattle the duel for the title so much, but certainly had some influence, I would say. I thought it had some decent ingredients for like a memorable campaign.
I would argue with confidence that the MX2 finale will go down in history. I think that will be referenced for eternity. As it's not over until it's over. Anything can happen. You never quite know. All of those
was it
stereotypes.
Cheapen,
well, you know MX2 was good because shall we start with that?
Okay.
For the first time in history.
We usually save it for the last 10 minutes.
Well, 10 minutes is a bit generous. I think we normally save it for the last 10 seconds. I am fine with it, and I've said this a million times, so I'll repeat it again briefly. The difference between Haiden Deegan and Kay de Wolf is Haiden took multiple failed attempts to me. To me? No, to everyone. Everyone could see that. Whereas Kay de Wolf took one single shot in each moto and did it successfully. And I believe in a championship scenario, you are allowed one shot to make it happen. But if in Hayden's situation, you take 5 and you're still failing and it's not quite working, that's when it gets cheapened. That's when it gets a little eye-rolly. But I can't sit here and criticize Kay for taking one shot each time and being successful with it.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, in the privileged position of sort of knowing Kay a little bit and also Rasmus and the whole sort of, Husqvarna Nestan team, it's not typical behavior, you could say. I mean, exceptional circumstances, exceptional reactions. And I don't want to excuse that because I'd hate to see it on a regular basis. I think, our friend and colleague Steve Mathis summed it up quite well on his podcast show by saying that the sport is gnarly enough as it is. People get hurt enough as it is without having this kind of sort of bollocks going on as well. But, I think the difference between de Wolf and Deegan is that in some people's opinions, you could say that Deegan's a bit of a scumbag. This is kind of par for the course in terms of the respect he has for his rivals and the disregard he has a little bit for some sort of racing etiquette. Whereas de Wolf, he doesn't really have this track record or this previous, let's say. So I think you have to forgive him for analysing the situation and thinking I have to do something a little bit extreme here, and I mean, the circumstances of that second moto and everything that we saw in Australia, and I think we should talk about the Australian GP perhaps after this sort of summary of the MX2 title wrap up. Just beggared belief, and the way it sort of swung one way to the other. I mean, Paul Malin, as ever, was fantastic on the TV commentary, and he was backed up quite well by Ben Townley, I thought, who spoke very well and gave some good insight, as a rider who's been there and done it. But yeah, Lewis, it was I had trouble trying to comprehend the significance of what was going on. I don't really remember a finale like it. Maybe going back to Mexico in 2014 and watching Jeffrey Herlings racing with Jordi Tixier in the same moto, seeing the progress they were making, the positions they were trading, trying to do the math, trying to work out, what on earth is going to go on for the championship. That's the only thing that sort of comes close in my memory for it. But yeah, amazing stuff.
It really was. And yeah, to your point, I was surprised when Kai took his first shot because knowing him, as you said, that just isn't really something I expect from him. And I don't mean that negatively. It wasn't quite on my radar. Whereas in contrast, Deegan was very much on everyone's radar. And I think everyone ultimately expected that, if not more.
Yeah. I mean, I think Langenfelder did well to sort of parry a little bit. I know he went down, and he had to sort of recover. And then also as the rain started coming as well, it was high tension. And I don't know. How can we draw a line under it? I kind of hope we don't see it again. Also, I mean, there's no comparison really to the Tom Vial, Jago Hertz altercation we saw in Turkey a couple of years ago either, is there?
I don't really remember the altercation. Oh, yes, they both went down. Yes, but that wasn't...
They both collided.
That doesn't register in my memory as something dirty for some reason.
No. Yeah, it wasn't dirty, but it was
I've just had a... Gertz crashed and Vial ran into him, didn't he? Or vice versa? I think Vial crashed and Gertz ran into him.
I don't think anyone... There was no kind of line crossing or any kind of skullduggery, if you like. But
honestly, I sit here and I cannot criticise Kai de Wolf at all. I genuinely feel that way. Whereas I and the rest of the motocross collective can sit here and criticise Haiden Deegan. I think that essentially draws a line under the two parallels.
And it also reflects badly on Haiden Deegan just because of the previous sort of... I don't know, what's the word, altercations or warnings or behavior or whatever you want, because, as soon as you kind of get a little bit of that dirty or disrespectful image, then the benefit, the doubt's always going to go the other way. Even you could say that Haiden was unlucky with the kitchen incident, but then again, that was just like another form of sort of karmic payback, I guess you could say. And in the end, Kai was the one that paid for, being the
aggressor, the
protagonist, or the instigator, or whatever you want to say it.
Yeah, and I think this also goes along with the teams on each side. Star Racing has a bit of a checkered history. Some people aren't quite on board with how they run their program, but Kai, Rasmus, and Stan Husqvarna, I'm not sure anyone has ever said a bad word about that outfit. A rider's never departed with ill will. There's no negativity in the universe. So when situations like this do happen, they do get the benefit of the doubt.
I mean, what was it, 9 points dividing the riders at the end?
Yes.
What was that, kind of 10% of the... I mean, there's less. That's what's like 1% of the entire total. Was, my maths is terrible. I mean, we were talking about 900 odd points. So to be split by 9 at the end. And I think if I had to speculate, Kai will be dissecting 2025 and the championship, thinking there maybe were some motos where I could have stepped things up a little bit. Maybe he was riding at 70, 80% and he could have pushed a bit more, with the hindsight that those points will count. Also, Simon Langenfelder, as we've said in previous podcasts, Lewis, his greatest strength this year has been the fact that he's kept injury free, but also some of the mentality where he's had like a bad or a mediocre moto and come out on the next one and won it or done even better. And he's sort of fired back from setbacks to again excel. And that kind of little pendulum of form all the way through this year has kept him with the red plate and ultimately made him champion.
Yeah, and let's not forget, a lot of people heading into this final triple header were critical and not very confident in Simon's ability to handle the pressure, the heat. And he arguably had more pressure and on-track heat than anyone would have ever anticipated, and to an extent, he took it in his stride. I mean, he came out on top. You could argue that second moto included a little bit of a brain fade and a panic, but I think we can let that slide because ultimately it was the most hair-raising scenario of all, with the weather as well as the aggressive incidents. So I think Langenfelder has silenced a lot of critics here. And I think, and this is the best way to draw a line under it, Langenfelder is a deserving champion, but Kai de Wolf and Rasmus can feel like they were deserving champions too. Because ultimately there has to be a winner and loser, and I'm happy to sit here and give Langenfelder as well as de Wolf all the credit in the world. Whereas, in contrast, in MXGP, I don't feel the same way about Febvre and Coenen. I think Febvre was the deserving champion. I think Coenen didn't deserve it on the level of Febvre and wasn't quite
I don't know about that. I mean, we can talk about that in a moment, but I mean, Coenen was exceptional all season. Especially season? As like a first go in the 450 class, coming in injured as well. I think his standards have been unreal. If it was like his second or third year, I think maybe he could be a bit more critical. But with MX2 Lewis, I agree with your point completely. I think Kai de Wolf would have been a deserving number one. Langenfelder, of course. I mean, the little kind of landmarks for KTM. I think it's their 11th different MX2 champion since 2004. The 16th time that the KTM 250 SXF has won a world title. By far the most decorated and glorious motorcycle in Grand Prix history, I'd say. And then, you have the fact that he's the first rider since Ken Roczen, 2011, first German to win a championship. And he was being asked questions about running the number one plate, which hints that he could stay in MX2 for another year, which was a little surprising. I thought he might jump on a 450, but I guess it remains to be seen as we still wait for news for quite a lot of rider movements, for KTM's plans, even for the 2026 MXGP calendar.
Yeah, calendar this week. I think now Adamo rumours are running rampant again, and I don't know why, because I thought we were a done deal with factory KTM, but Ducati rumours out there, now rumours that he could go to MXGP after all, which was the discussion, of course, 2 months ago or so. But I think Langenfelder, is steadfast in his MX2 defence. And I think, so everyone knows, regular listeners to this podcast, I've been there for Langenfelder for years now, and this is as much my victory as it is his. I do think that there's still more to come from him. I think that Kai de Wolf was far and away the fastest rider, the best rider, and I still feel like Langenfelder should have capitalised more so on de Wolf's misfortune. There is no way, with how good Langenfelder is, that he should have seen a 70-point advantage dwindle for no real reason. It's not like there was an injury that caused it, a first-turn crash, mechanical, He, to an extent, dropped the ball to see that advantage disappear, and I think that Langenfelder is far too good to have that happen. So I still feel like we aren't fully serving our potential quite.
Yeah, he's 21 years old, and this was the first time he's had to nurse a world championship campaign. So that's mitigating factors, I think, especially entering the last 3 to 4 rounds. But if Kai de Wolf had ridden like he had done in Lommel and Arnhem in the sand, if we'd seen a little bit more of that, but that also that ability on a 250, then we might have seen an even closer chase. No need for the kind of tactics we saw in Darwin, and maybe even like de Wolf carrying the red plate into the final round. But all ifs, buts, and maybes.
Yeah, so de Wolf ended with 7 GP wins, which ties his total from last year, which was of course his championship winning campaign. Simon Langenfelder ended with 6 Grand Prix wins, and actually I only just realised or remembered Langenfelder went winless last year. Wonder when the last time a champion came off the back of a winless season. So
he's been he was been championship runner-up, or he's been in the top 3 like 3 times. Well, he said. I mean, 2 of those years he was injured. Yeah,
this was going to be my other point on Langenfelder. The last 4 years he has gone bronze, 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 gold. I think that is a record that deserves some credit, because, Caroli went bronze, gold, silver, gold? Yes. But, Sewer stacked some medals in MX2, but Jonas, Prado was out of there sooner than that, so that doesn't really count. But, point being, I don't know if there's really riders who have stacked that many MX2 medals. I think that in itself puts him in somewhat of an exclusive category.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and also it's been coming. So without injury and managing to plan things a little bit more effectively, then, Langenfelder got the job done. Also, it's credit to the Decali team, the Decali faction of Red Bull KTM, yet another world championship, yet another one for the first time with a rider in their operation. So that's another sort of, I don't know, badge of honor, I guess you could say. And, in contrast to maybe SMX, Red Bull KTM have just been resolute. And you needed, like we said, an Austrian bike in MX2 this year. You have Red Bull KTM riders first, third and fourth in the World Championship. And you have Husqvarna riders, second and was Liam Everts fifth or sixth overall? I don't remember if McLaren got enough points. Okay. So, props to Triumph for actually managing to break into that little kind of collective. But, if you add Lucas Coenen's feats and Jeffrey Herlings' wins in the MXGP class, then it's been, I think, another banner year for sort of the equipment in GPs at least.
Yeah, and actually worth noting that KTM had its highest MX2 win total since 2019. Of course, 2019 was pre-Gas, so that statistic quite clearly points to the fact that Gas not being around is beneficial to KTM. As you know, once again, we've played this game all along, but if Gas was still in existence, Gas would have won the MX2 title, Gas would have been runner-up in MXGP, and KTM would have been third and fourth. And once again, the least successful of the three manufacturers, which is, I think, fascinating. Obviously, we didn't get there, but it's just interesting to think of that juxtaposition. So, did you watch it live? You wouldn't have, would you? It was like 3 a.m.
I was watching parts of it live, so especially the second moto.
So the second MX2 moto, I was doing interviews in the paddock when the second moto was going on, which was difficult for me because I was dealing with is Chase Sexton alive? Who's winning MX2? Interviews. It was a lot. But so they had technical issues?
Yes. First of all, I mean, I want to talk about Darwin at one point.
Yeah,
because this was the first MXGP round in Australia for 24 years. And we'll talk about sort of the meeting in a moment, but there was this sensation of almost like amateur hour when it came to MX2, purely because of the positions on track, the deluge of water and the chaos that it created. Watching the live feed, you could tell that Paul Malin and Ben Townley had lost power in the truck. We could hear them, but they couldn't see anything. There was confusion over the results. Initially, we were informed that Simon Lagerfelder won the GP, but then they put Kai de Wolf's Husqvarna in the center, and then you're trying to work out the points. How was that kind of possible? Had they made a mistake with the championship? We're not sure as to the level of confusion down on the ground around the paddock.
Well,
and there was also, if you red flag a race, how far back do you count? And where actually on track was Kai de Wolf? So there was this feeling of like, can someone please get a grip on what is going on and what is the reference? Is it the live timing at the circuit? Is it the information that the commentators have? That was a bit of a bit of a shame, but I guess they were extreme circumstances.
Yeah, I've had it from a few people that there was, I don't want to say controversy, but confusion about who was champion, because I guess they counted it back X number of laps, which made Langenfelder the champion, but if they'd gone back one lap more, Kai was going to be the champion. And to be honest with you, with the power going out and the weather and the chaos, I don't know if you'll ever be able to retrace those steps and figure out if it was the right decision or wrong decision. But there hasn't been any sort of protest.
Also, Lewis, to cut across you, I would like to know why it was red flagged. I mean, was it safety issues? Was it track condition? There was no clarification on that. So that also opens up interpretation and conspiracy, if you like. And, right now, in the aftermath of the GP, Kai de Wolf, I'm sure, was analysing those last few laps that he did. Could have he avoided any major puddles or swampy sections? Were there different lines he could have taken? Because that also is going to trouble him, because he was champion at one point. It was Simon had sort of come off the bike, was further down in the pack, and it was looking good for the Husqvarna rider. So the fact that the bike stopped meant would it have stopped anyway, or did Kai make bad choices? That's also, one sort of exciting factor, I guess, of the whole thing.
Well, there was one TV shot of him, I don't know how you would describe what turn, but him going through a lake in a turn, and then the bike immediately died after. So I've got to think the water there did the job. But honestly, heartbreaking scenes, him pushing the bike up the jump, like trying to bump start it, and like you could see in the moment him refusing to let go of the dream. And it obviously for me watching after the fact, it was a little bit like, fuck, like it's a bit of a hard emotional watch, to be honest.
Yeah, but also the red flag it, but again, what was the reason? If it was for safety, then was it because there were riders stuck on track? Because that's usually been an excuse before.
Yeah, because it wasn't.
But then I think back to Faenza in 2009, where riders could barely get up the hill. Villa Suaco as well for the French GP, where the women's moto. Half of the field was stranded on the hill and they couldn't get up. That wasn't red flagged. So I would like some sort of some explanation behind the thought process there. Maybe it's just coming from MotoGP, where every kind of decision is immediately relayed through timing screens or through information graphics. I felt that there was some need for clarification of that, and it didn't really appear, not on any of the MXGP social media channels anyway. Yeah,
it could have been lightning in the area, because that's quite a hot button issue now. But yeah, as far as track conditions go, okay, visibility would have been quite bad. Obviously, it was lashing down, but it was raining so hard that it hadn't become sticky yet. It was just wet, which is the best sort of conditions for safety and whatever else, because bikes aren't getting stuck in the track and it's not a game of survival. You can still circulate. So I don't know. One person said to me that it wouldn't have been red flagged. Actually, curious for your opinion of this. It wouldn't have been red flagged if Kai's bike didn't blow up or die, because there's no way they could have ended the championship fight with a red flag, because then they would have been accused of bias, and you red flagged it on that lap because it favoured Kai. So I was told that as soon as Kai's bike went, that was when they were like, right, we're red flagging it, Simon's the champion, no dispute. Which makes sense, because if Kai was still circulating as well as Simon, there's no way you can just throw a red flag and be like, yeah, we're done, guys, congrats.
Well, yeah, but then again, if there are 3 riders down after one jump and its visibility is very low and it is a potential risk, then it has to be red flag regardless of what's happening in the standings or not. But it was like this phenomenal storm. It wasn't like Kozar, where the rain was sort of relentless and just seemed to wash the track away down a hill. And I think it was quite interesting seeing the pictures before the MX2 second moto that eventually didn't run, because parts of the track looked okay, other parts were submerged, and the argument again there was for safety. There must have been some thoughts of preservation of the bikes as well, because they needed to be clean, maintained, and then boxed and sent to the US for the nations. Is that really justification not to run a second moto of a GP that's also just won like the Promoters Award, the FIM Awards at the end of the evening? That's a question. It was interesting seeing the FIM medical director, Dave McManus, there taking part in the discussions. So he obviously gave his opinion as to the safety state of the track. And that, you hope that would have sort of influenced the final decision. I thought, full props to our friend Dan Longo for getting in amongst the riders and making a call that just seemed, completely common sense. But again, I think when things like this happen, you need to be very clear for the reasoning.
Yeah, let's get into that second MXGP moto, which never quite ran. All of the riders are very complimentary of Dan and in front, because they feel like they were listened to, there was no dispute, and ultimately everyone got what they wanted, which wasn't to race. So yeah, well done to in front, I guess, for listening to the riders, but also, I don't know, it's certainly weird to end the season with, and I think in one of the TV shots you could even hear Dan say to the riders, "Congrats, guys, great season. Like, see you next year." That's a weird way to end the championship.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Were they thinking a little bit of the nations? I mean, if there was no race afterwards, it could have been like, just crack on, guys, trash the equipment. I mean, also the status of the Grand Prix, the amount of investment, the distance involved for most of the European-centric teams. To say no, we're not going to turn out to race in front of what seemed like a really big crowd, was a brave call, I thought. I mean, it was certainly a contrast to sort of all the trouble that you caused, Lewis, in One a few years ago.
Yeah, well, again, at the time of the second motos, I was circulating a paddock doing interviews, like occasionally looking at my phone when I got a text. And 3 or 4 people text me photos from the start line of the riders huddled in a strike-esque formation. So you can imagine my surprise and horror when I was like, what the hell is going on? And then felt as though maybe I was needed.
Yeah, maybe they should have photoshopped a picture of you in the background, or, you know.
It's all fun and games. But yeah.
Australia, I mean, what was your thoughts? Because we'd seen images of the track. The track build looked fantastic. I think we were right to be skeptical because those kind of temporary modern new builds on road race facilities never tend to really work out. But, the reaction and some messages from people already on Friday were just very surprised at the quantity of people. I don't think I was that surprised. I mean, there was some criticism of the location, heading to the Northern Territories in Darwin. Some people sort of saying it was hardly a motocross stronghold in the country. But, the fact that Australia hadn't had a GP for 24 years, they'd had 2 in a row in 2000 and 2001 in Broadford. I was working at the second one. And it was a one moto format in those days. You had Jamie Dobb winning in the 125 category, Mikel Bichon winning in the 250s, and Stefan Everts won in the 500s. But Andrew McFarlane, the late Andrew McFarlane, scored a second place that day, and he had won the GP the previous year, which got him into GPs, on a factory Yamaha contract. Yeah. And I remember the reception to McFarlane doing well. I mean, the Aussie fans create a fantastic atmosphere. It's very kind of French American-esque in terms of their excitement for the sport. So it wasn't like a complete shock that there were fans in Darwin and they were really up for MXGP. But I think the state of the facility, the condition of the track, I was a bit concerned at one point because it seemed quite dusty. But otherwise it was like a first-class event, and it's also not a surprise to learn that another one's already penciled in on the calendar. Maybe we have to revise the timing of it. I don't know in the Northern Territories if sort of September, right at the end of at that time of year, is the best time to go. Ignorant in that aspect.
Yeah, if I could stand up right now, then I would give the Australian Grand Prix a round of applause because I feel like it was brilliant, no notes. Of course, similar to our first visit to Villa Angostura, a year of just online backlash, criticism. No one had really a nice word to say about going to Darwin for its remote location, like you said, which is par for the course with MXGP nowadays. I don't think they can announce any venue without getting backlash, which I don't think is quite fair. But similar to what you said, from Friday, the riders that were messaging me were like, this is amazing. Track looks great. Area's great, hotel's great, food's great, infrastructure's great. Like, I can honestly say, hand on my heart, industry and riders, I did not have a single negative message from Friday to now. Even down to the second moto drama. The MXGP riders are like, we were listened to for the first time. This was amazing. Who would have thought? So, from that sense, I think it was a undoubted success. Similar to you, I think if I had one criticism or point of note, it would be that, similar to the way we gave China applause because the grass in the middle of the track added some flair there, a bit of presentation, some television shots did look like a dust bowl. It did look a little bit just like, whatever. But that's going to happen. It's motocross at the end of the day. The track design was incredible. I don't know if we've ever seen a track with so many options, lines, like the first MX2 moto, when Kai passed Simon, and then Simon squared him off, and then Kai squared him off, and it was like, oh my God, this is racing. We don't really have racing like this anymore. So I've got to give the track props from that side, maybe one of the most raceable tracks we have. And brilliant. The position of the crowd actually very much reminded me of Villa Angostura, kind of banked against the track. Yeah. The whole layout of the facility, for some reason, just gave me Villa Angostura vibes. And I'm excited and proud that they have a second edition because it's much deserved, and the very, very, very long wait to return to Australia was worth it, in my humble opinion.
If there's one weakness of this podcast is that we're not able to get on the ground to get some reactions, and I'd like to know who was actually working on the track prep, because that has received compliments from the riders, like you say, in terms of being able to offer lines and variation. I mean, if it was the usual MXGP crew, then what's the difference? I mean, this is a subject we've spoken about before, Lewis, but every different Grand Prix goes to very different clubs and cultures and countries. Sometimes, if you go somewhere like Qatar, where they have an immense team and lots of resources to do whatever you want with the track, then it can be easier to change stuff and modify things, as well as having time on the schedule, of course, because it's not flooded with the European support classes to be able to make improvements. But then in other tracks where the timetable is absolutely flat out from like 8 a.m. in the morning right up until it's almost dark, depending on the timing of the year, then it can be harder to sort of really prep the track in a decent way, taking into account the weather also. I mean, that was highlighted from the heat and humidity the guys suffered in Australia to ultimately that sort of tropical storm. But full props, like you say, it was a good job made by the terrain, and also hearing from some colleagues on Friday, the signing sessions, which tends to be a bit of a staple thing at overseas MXGPs, was apparently really busy. I've been to some that have been quite packed, like in Brazil. Thailand as well is also pretty popular. Argentina too. Mm-hmm. But then I've been to some others, like it's ritually done in Sweden, where there's like 40 or 50 people, and you kind of feel a bit sorry for the MXGP guys, spending time not really catering to like a big audience. But by all accounts, in Australia, it was it was sort of very well received. So yes, lots of plaudits. The only thing I will make a bit of a comment on, though, is that the MXGP Awards, which happens right after the final sort of Grand Prix of the season, it looked a little bit ramshackle in that sort of casino setting. I think some more dressage, if we're tackling that subject with the grass and whatever else with tracks, maybe could have been applied to that, just to sort of give it a bit more class.
The whole MXGP Awards just felt very awkward to me, to be honest. I did watch them for some reason. I don't even know why I gave it that sort of time. But it felt very awkward. It doesn't normally. It felt uncomfortable to watch almost. My criticism is, and I'll try not to get too emotional, Adam actually gave me advice last week that I was being too emotional in my output of things. And he's almost choked on his water. We're a professional sport. If we're cancelling the second moto, probably need to put it on social media and tell people at some point.
Yes.
Probably need to. And to your point about the red flag, why on earth has there not been a statement from the FIM or in front saying the second MXGP motos, first of all, put out an immediate social media bulletin saying second motos are not running due to adverse weather conditions. And then the next day, there should be an FIM or in front statement saying, the second motos were unable to be run for this reason, blah, 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 blah. It has to be communicated. That is how... It was quite clear that the MXGP social media accounts were scared to approach the subject, because I checked, I want to say 2 hours after the end of MX2 Moto 2, and that was the last tweet. Here's the MX2 results. It's like... If you're a fan, and I know it's hard to believe because we are a small sport, but there are people who are following this along on Twitter. They're like, where the hell is MXGP Moto 2? Did that happen? It's amateur hour. And I don't understand why that even needs to be said, because it should go without saying that, hey guys, tell people you've cancelled your second moto. But
yeah.
Hey.
Also, we could throw axes. I'm reluctant to, because I still kind of respond to live tweeting, from the track. I think sometimes it's a very fast and quick way to get an update on what's going on through the motos if for some reason you can't be watching the feed. But I think I'm not too sure in the in-front motor racing team or setup if someone's having to do 2 to 3 jobs at once. But the live tweets, you could argue that could be a bit better or a little bit less ramshackle, I guess, if that's all hurried.
That's your word of the day.
I'm sure it's the right one, but I don't know, guys. If you're going to do it, kind of do it well, and that also extends to like the official press release output from the championship. I mean, the press releases are fantastically written, hugely informative, but way so long. It's like a huge essay, sometimes just to try to get to the meat of what has happened in a Grand Prix. I think that needs to be revised a little bit. It's almost like a 10 to 15-year-old mechanism for information that's, it's too much. It would be better almost to have a couple of press releases, but shorter, more punchy, letting us know what's happened. I think also SMX is guilty of this, where they're almost trying to produce huge race reports I don't know if media outlets really do copy and paste jobs anymore. They shouldn't. I mean, to a degree, race related stuff is the victim now of kind of AI anyway. But like you say, I think my general point, my long-winded point, is that the information sort of relay or outlet from the championship maybe could be fine-tuned a little bit to, I don't know, keep up with sort of 2025, 2026 times.
Yeah, you can tell that the output is dictated by what they believe is expected of them rather than what is the correct, smart, savvy decision across the board. Like, the press releases that go out, half of them aren't needed, but you can tell someone is just like, I feel like we need to do this. Like, ultimately, once again, don't probably need an EMX race report. You can probably just add the results to the bottom of the MXGP race report, like, spend that time doing something else. We don't need this.
Well, it's due diligence to a series, and obligations, almost like a B2B, like a business-to-business aspect to it as well. All the sponsors or people who have vested interests in EMX, that has to be serviced. That's why you could say, well, why even bother with things like press releases anymore? You do need to reward the people that have vested interests in a sport. So that's why it has to stay. And as a marketing 101, it's an essential kind of ingredient. You look more amateurish, if you don't do it, I think. But I think you can ask questions and say, listen, as MXGP guys, for 2026, what could we perhaps do a little bit better? Maybe even we could talk to some of the media, the guys doing podcasts, doing reports, people who are writing for newspapers, maybe in Argentina. What kind of stuff do they need? People doing video content. Why not just look at the whole sort of system and perhaps assess whether it's necessary or not?
Yeah, if I get my dream job almost is to have control over MXGP's digital output, media output, new website, everything. The whole lot is kind of archaic and not really representative of what the championship is. And especially in these times where I do think that we have a lot of American fans who are teetering on the edge of wanting to get invested in MXGP and don't quite know if they want to invest the time and effort to get to know the riders and stuff. I feel like it's very important to make it all very accessible and easy for those fans. And I don't feel like In Front does a good enough job. But hey, we were celebrating Australia, and we've just turned very negative. But that's because that's what we do here.
No, the GP was cool. I think it was a really strong end to the championship as well. You do also have that cost factor. I'd like to know whether the teams, when they sit down in this off season, look at the bank balance and say, well, was it beneficial to go to Australia? Because I think it showed the sport in a great light. But people will look at it and think, shit, can we do that again next year? Or can we do that for the next 5 years? These are legitimate questions, and I don't think they should be tossed out of hand just because the Grand Prix went well. And, it looks like another sort of key ingredient. I would also like to know from the organisers or the promoters' point of view. There were a couple of people standing up talking at the MXGP Awards, giving thank yous, doing their kind of word of mouth duties, I guess you could say, but it did seem that the GP was quite successful. Let's hope that the championship can still go there and make it work.
I'm excited for the calendar. And again, that comes out this week, so stay tuned. And SMX next week, a week today, actually. So a lot of dates flying at you thick and fast here coming up. And if they're flying at you thick and fast, you need to be very careful, because if you're sat on a motorcycle, those dates could snap a lever. You know what? So could Simon Langenfelder in MX2 Carnage over the weekend. He was very lucky not to snap a lever, but he would have been even more confident in his ability to avoid mechanical failure if he was using Polisport's APT unbreakable levers. Snapping levers? That's weak and outdated. Polisport's APT unbreakable levers bend on impact, bend back to their original shape, and let you keep riding. With a stainless steel core built for war, they are rock solid strong and designed to match the OEM levers, shape and specs. Polisport's APT unbreakable levers stand up to every single challenge. Thank you to Polisport for their support of this podcast, of course, and ProX Racing Parts as well. One point of note before we get onto MXGP at long last, I felt like this stat was very interesting. Valerio Lata landed on the podium for the first time this year. Second podium of his career, because he also podiumed on debut as a KTM rider last year. Sorry, Gas rider, I think. Same thing. This was Honda's 50th MX2 podium Poignant.
Okay.
That's a landmark. Tying Suzuki took them that long to tie Suzuki. Poignant. Yes. Stay with me.
What do you mean, for MX2?
Yeah, for
or
MX2 podiums.
Right, okay, yeah. So since 2004.
Yes. 254 stroke podiums, let's say. So yeah, Suzuki ended on 50, took Honda that long to get there, and Honda's total of 50 MX2 podiums has been made up of 18 different riders, which really
18.
points to the lack of cohesion and structure with Honda's MX2 effort, doesn't it? Because that says riders from teams and different countries and all over the place, you know? I think all of that information is very poignant, and I'm going to be angry if you tell me I'm an idiot.
No. That's a great stat. 18 different riders is quite something. But it's also worth noting that the 250 for Honda was largely like a Honda Motor Europe project, and it wasn't quite under HRC guidance in terms of sort of factory parts. I mean, I could be wrong, but I believe that the 250s like Jet and Hunter Lawrence were racing in the US were quicker, better, and superior to anything like any GP riders had. Perhaps go back to sort of Calvin Verlanderen when he was racing the 250, took his first GP win in Indonesia. Remind me the date, Lewis. 2018, perhaps? Yeah, okay. So then, you could say that the Honda 250 had some metal then. But, I don't know.
In keeping with the tone of the podcast, 3 Australians contributed to that total as Honda MX2 podium finishers. Can you name them?
3 Australians achieved
MX2
Honda
podiums.
Yep. Goodness. I was going to say Dean Ferris, but no, because he was on a Yamaha. Todd Waters wouldn't have been.
No.
It was good to see Todd in the gate as well at his home GP. That was very cool, like a nice sort of pre-race grid or gate interview by Lisa Leyland.
Good to see one of these riders in the paddock as well. Little hint for you there.
I'm really struggling, Lewis.
Okay, well, Hunter Lawrence is one with Honda 114, of course.
Yeah.
Mitch Evans, also with Honda 114. And the one that I really thought was going to trip you up is...
No, I've gone blank.
Jed Beaton.
On a Honda?
Yeah, because he was fill-in, I want to say, at the end of 2017, Villa Suseco, the race you actually referenced earlier, the Mudder.
And he was on the podium then?
Yeah. Jed Beaton's a good rider. And he was also he was also in the paddock for the first time since he left MXGP, walking around with a crutch because he's got a broken femur.
Well, I mean, I was in Misano for the MotoGP and also the test. I did a very nice interview with Casey Stoner. Moto fans might recognize that name. And he was feeling sort of quite optimistic about Team Australia's chances at the Motocross of Nations, but he said that, if Beaton had been the MX2 rider, then that team would have been unbeatable.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's quite a hot take.
Yeah. So, take your pick. I mean, Hunter could also have ridden the 250. But those 3, and I'm inclined to agree, Lewis. I don't want to sort of disservice the current Team Australia trio, but to see Jed Beaton again representing Team Australia with the Lawrence brothers would have been pretty magnificent.
I don't want to. If he had got a Star Yamaha, which I presume he would have, that would have also been quite beneficial. But of course, Kyle Webster has a factory Honda, so I guess that's by to buy. Not to question my own stats here, but I have Jussi Veverläinen listed as an MX2 podium on a Honda in 2004. Don't remember Jussi Veverläinen ever getting an MX2 podium? Of course, his 2005 MX1 with Cass Honda sticks out.
I want to say that might have been in Portugal for some reason.
No, that was, maybe, but that was his MX1 podium with Cass was Portugal.
Ah, right.
So maybe that's what you're thinking of. Anyway, we are 49 minutes in, and I'm excited to announce Romain Febvre is your MXGP World Champion. I know you've all been on the edge of your seats waiting for this very moment. He got the job done. It wasn't a surprise at all. Of course, he went in with a very healthy advantage and simply needed to survive in order to win the championship. But he did that very, very well. Emotional scenes, I have to say. Very happy for Romain, even more overjoyed for Antti Peronen, because Anti's set up. So Anti is the team manager for Kimi Räikkönen's race team, which, again, I sent out a tweet before I went to bed last night because everyone, including myself, has done a terrible job of exposing and celebrating the fact that Kimi Räikkönen is an MXGP World Champion. That's massive.
But he doesn't build it up much himself, does he?
Well, yeah, but that's his kind of persona, isn't it? Like, it's kind of a shame for motocross. Like, of all the F1 drivers, we got the one that doesn't want to do any self-promotion.
Yeah. I mean, if it had been Lewis Hamilton having a motocross team, I think, you would have seen some fantastic exposure for MXGP on various sort of channels that are associated with Lewis Hamilton. But like you say, Lewis, I don't want to deride sort of the achievement there, because I think you have to firstly applaud Kimi for making that huge investment in MXGP for so many years. It wasn't like he stuck his own money in for a couple of years and thought, I'm going to bugger off now. I mean, he's been going at it for 13 seasons, I think, with 3 different brands, and the resources, the workshop that the team have is first class. I mean, he really has gone to town for MXGP, and it's finally come back.
Yeah, and that workshop is actually what everyone has always told me is why he's so happy to make this investment, because the workshop and everything in there is all stuff that can be sold if he ever gets bored of this. So it's kind of like an insurance policy is what I've always been told. Like, he's not actually on the hook that much, because everything he invests in and buys for the team is tangible and can be sold. But why wasn't Kimi Räikkönen in Australia? Well, being the top journalist that I am, I did some digging. One, he's very busy with his son's karting. And 2, he doesn't fly anywhere unless he can fly on his private jet.
Well, that's really not an excuse, is it? If he still has a private jet.
I don't know. Can a private jet go to Australia? It's quite far.
Yeah, we have to stop off somewhere and fuel up, but I imagine you can probably get there.
Okay, well, the first one then. His son's karting. But yes, and I want to touch on this quickly, because I do think this is very poignant. Pyronin's Pyronen or Pon? I've always said Pyronen, but then I've started hearing people say Pyronen. I've always said Pyronen. Okay,
I think either or.
Okay.
We can ask him when you see him in Island Man.
And he's going to say, Team England. That's what
if he says Team England, then you can don't worry about pronouncing his name any which way you want.
That's what he always says to me. His thing in the MXGP paddock was to me and Max. Every time he would always see us, he would go, buddy, London Bridge is burning down. How is London Bridge? Anyway. Do you like my anti-impression?
Yeah, that was great.
Honestly,
actually.
I've been told I do a great anti. It's kind of my crowning moment. Hello, buddy. Anyway, this is fucking ridiculous.
Come on, buddy.
Anti's setup has come under criticism a lot over the years because it has been very rigid, I would say. Quite stressful for the riders, let's say. Not a lot of freedom. Help me out. It's just rigid, I think is the best way to put it.
No, you either buy into the working practices of the team. I think Anti works for his riders, and he's one of those guys who sort of never sleeps in terms of giving the riders what they need, but you either get on board with the program and you be quite flexible with it, or it's just not going to suit you. I think we saw that in some ways it worked for a rider like Max Anstey, but then when he was having difficulties, it didn't work so much. Yeah. Maybe Anti's way is maybe a bit hard. I don't know. I mean, when things are going, it might be one of those places where when things are going great, then everything's hunky-dory. But when they're not, the quest to find solutions can be quite tough, and then their sort of relationships break down. I think we can see that just from the turnover of riders that have represented the team. Apart from Romain Febvre, there hasn't really been anyone who's been there for multiple years.
Yeah, and I think that is because I think Febvre is the one who's broken the mold a little bit, and Anti and Kimi, so desperate in their quest for an MXGP title, kind of had to relinquish some of that control. To be honest with you, to put it bluntly, I've been told, and Romain's been there for some time now, but I've been told Romain's the first rider who would tell Anti and the team, like, no, that's not what I'm doing. And I think the riders before him were a little more scared to speak out.
Well, there's a Kawasaki influence as well.
Yeah.
How much say do Kawasaki have in Romain Febvre's contract and the demands that he makes?
Yeah. But to be clear, make it clear how Ice One, which is the team's technical name, obviously Kimi is the Iceman, Ice One, if you didn't know. Again, I feel like we should be doing a better job of drumming this up. The team's reputation precedes it because, as I'm sure you'll attest to, over the years there's been many points where rumours about a rider going to the team have surfaced, and the saying is, oh, that rider won't be able to do well there. Oh, that team isn't going to work. Whereas you don't really hear that about any other team because they are just kind of like teams. Whereas this, as I said, the reputation precedes it. So, not always smooth sailing for Ice One, I would say, but yeah, poignant that they got it done. As well as Kawasaki, of course, their first Premier Class title since 1998, first world title since 2006, MX2 with Christophe Pourcel. Of course, some WMX in there, but I'm not counting those. So, sue me.
Is Romain Febvre also the oldest Premier Class champion?
Oh, I don't know. He's not that old.
Everts? He's 30. He's 33.
Yes, but how old was Everts when he retired?
I don't want to say Stefan was that old.
Really?
I mean, Tony Cairoli won his last title, in 2017, and he would have been 31, 32. And if Romain's 33, is his birthday, or is he 32 and 33 famously on December the 31st?
Yeah, that's the tricky one.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to first check Romain's age, but I mean, in the MXGP era, so since 2004, I wouldn't mind betting that he's probably one of the older world champions. Well, certainly one of the older world champions, but whether he's the oldest or not, it'd be worth looking at.
We've said this a lot, so let's just sum it up quickly as well. Massive for Kawasaki. Good to see a lot of Japanese influence there. Good to see in the team's official race report press release, going back to that discussion once more, that there was an official quote from someone in Japan who was talking about the development of the motorcycles and their investment in racing and why this matters. It's always good to see that forward-facing nature, because it kind of gives... It was... Oh, boy. Do you want me to give you the title, or do you want me to try and pronounce the name?
Go for both.
Fuck me. Okay. It was Sichi... Actually, I think I can do this. Sichi Kai is what I'm going to say. Executive...
That's not very difficult.
Well, it looks worse than it is, which is how I feel eating most Japanese food. Executive officer of Kawasaki Motors Limited. And he said, having been involved in motocross development for many years, winning the Motocross World Championship is very welcome news. During my time in development, I was able to celebrate twice in the 250cc class, 1995 and 1998, and twice in the 125 class, 96 and 2002. However, since the switch to four-stroke engines, there have been many times when we have been in the running for the championship but just missed out. So, yeah.
Maybe you need to look a little bit more towards the US, mate.
Well, I'm sure that Jorge Prado was clapping for Kawasaki, sent some congratulatory texts, and was very enthusiastic for the KX450's success, because if there's one man who loves Kawasaki, bleeds green, it's Jorge Prado.
Did you notice any? Was there any? I didn't notice any. If there was any kind of promotion or celebration through Monster Energy for this?
They did a standard Instagram video. I'm a little bit disillusioned with Monster Energy, to be honest. I feel like they need to be. I feel like they're dropping the ball somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, considering they're title sponsors of the World Championship, I thought there'd be more kind of coverage, celebration, some sort of big deal made about it. When was the last Monster World Champion? Was it Febvre in 2015?
Yes. So actually, I meant to bring this up with you. So obviously, Febvre won the championship with a Monster helmet in 2015, but it was a last-minute deal. They bought the championship. Yeah. They did the same with Tim Geiser in 2016. So is this the first legitimate MXGP title for Monster Energy? I think so.
Yeah, because, it's obviously been Red Bull KTM.
And then Geiser.
For quite a few years, then Geiser, who's been HRC without an energy drink backer.
Yeah, so in a similar vein to Kawasaki, Monster has been trying to get this championship for some time. And yes, again, they won it 15 and 16, but no one's counting that, because I could also hand Febvre a lot of money the day before he wins the championship and get my name on his helmet.
Yeah, you're right about that. But then also, I know that the deal with Febvre for Monster in 2015 was quite a long time coming. The races were coming thick and fast. They were talking, they were trying to seal the deal, and yes, they got it done just before the last GP. So it gave the impression of the championship almost being bought, or those pictures coming just at the right time. But I know that they've been trying to sort of sort something out. The Geiger one was a little bit more of a similar vein, I think. It was even more tricky because of Geiger's penchant for having red, yellow on his helmet, the whole 243 thing, as well as HRC's policy towards energy drinks. You can't just take the rider, you have to take the team. He had a Monster lid and it disappeared the next year. So it kind of felt a bit hollow. But then Monster have been back in February for 10 years now. And I think it would be good just to see some more recognition of that, I think. I mean, if you're going to sport market something, then, sort of go to town on it. Why not?
Yeah, I wonder if Monster would sponsor this podcast. Maybe we should knock on the door.
Yeah, heaven knows.
I mean, I do enough with drinking the can on this more often than not. In fact, I'll be grabbing a chilled can as soon as this podcast ends. So, if you want more of that organic promotion, Monster, get in touch. No, but just a big deal for everyone. Febvre, 10 years. Ice 1, first championship. Kawasaki, first championship since '98. Kimi Räikkönen, first championship outside of Formula One. Monster, there's not just one, their first world championship, all involved in this program. It's a poignant moment. No one is flippant and we've had a few of these. And speaking of Monster, I have a feeling that they may have a couple of exciting sports marketing potential announcements coming up. So,
right, okay.
Yeah.
You know more than me on that one.
Yeah, I think Monster may be able to rely on a more robust MXGP lineup next year, let's say. Let's just say that I would feel very confident the Monsters are going to win the 2026 MXGP World Championship.
Well, because we're going to have the Yamaha Tim Geiger announcement coming soon, but we've been talking about that for
potentially
2 months, Lewis.
Yeah, potentially more, but that's a lovely segue into... Well, actually, no, we're not doing that yet. We'll do that in a bit, but because we haven't talked about the fact that Lucas Coenen won the GP.
Yes.
1 hour and 2 minutes. Well done, Lucas Coenen. So I've had an interesting theory from someone who's far smarter than me, and dare I say, even smarter than you, Adam, but I won't say that. We'll let you decide.
That's easily done.
And they said it's very clear why Lucas dipped in Sweden and China. We all know that the Coenens run a very taxing program, let's say. They don't... Rest and recovery isn't really prioritised. Sweden came after Lommel, where they raced Cahuvel, and this person theorised that Lucas arguably didn't prioritise recovery after the toughest GP of the year. And then
will be in a Belgian international meeting.
Yep. And then China, obviously taxing travel, going back to Europe before China, then going to... this person who's far smarter said, if you look at those two GPs, it's clear why it didn't work. And that's because of the travel schedule. And the no limitation on... riding and no priority for rest and recovery, which I kind of liked that. I thought that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. But then I would also add some of the championship weight. The fact that sort of Coenen was doing so well and was so close to the ultimate prize. I think some of that must have been on his shoulders a little bit going to China, which was the pivotal Grand Prix. In Australia, Lewis, it was awesome. I mean, he won the qualifying race, I think, before the end of the first lap. I mean, that put 10 points in his pocket. Then also going into the first moto, he cleared off as well. He did everything he needed to do. And while we're giving praise to Lucas, for a season where, 13 podiums out of 20 GPs, that's a couple behind Febvre. But, for a rookie and a guy who came in with sort of still fractured wrists into the opening round, I want to applaud him for his class as well, because there were some times during the year where I thought the pressure or the status of being Red Bull KTM's lead guy and the only guy who's going toe-to-toe with, a giant of the class like Febvre, he was being a bit whingy. He was reacting to some of the hard racing or the close racing on track, but in Australia he was amazing. And then when he came over the finish line in that first moto, Febvre had finished fourth.
Yep.
To wrap the title. He was there clapping straight away. And afterwards on the podium, and in the awards, he was just buzzing. I mean, you could see how happy he was. There wasn't kind of any sulky behavior. I thought, for fair play to you, Lucas, maybe pre-GP he had accepted the fact that the title had gone, but he had had a fantastic year. And I think you just have to, again, marvel at the maturity of an 18-year-old in that position.
Yeah, I have to echo that, and the shot of him stood on the start line clapping Febvre as he came over the line. Brilliant. I loved that. Class act. Superb.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 for that moment. So well done, Lucas Coenen, and congrats on a great year in which he amassed 6 Premier Class victories, which means he has tied the career total of David Philipparts, Kevin Strybos, and Jonathan Barragan.
I think was it 5 or 6?
Don't do this to me, Adam.
I think it's 5, isn't it?
No, I think he was 5 going in. Because
okay.
Heading into Australia, Febvre, Herlings, and Coenen were all tied on 5 GP wins, to my knowledge. But I'm just double checking now.
Yeah, that's also 6. Okay, so he was the winningest rider of the season.
Frauenfeld, Agueda, Agada, Kimi Ring, Lockett, Lommel, Australia, which actually, even that, I didn't realise that he hadn't won since Lommel. That's a little bit of a drought. But I guess Herlings stacked so many of them.
Well, Herlings was P2. Oh, sorry, have you got one more point on Lucas?
Just tying Philipparts, Strybos and Barragan in his first season. I think that's poignant.
Yeah.
That's quite a list.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, absolutely. And also the fact that, he could just be in the class for the next 3 to 4 years. I mean, who knows if his head will be turned, if he will be the successor to, say, the Lawrences for American Honda. I mean, there's so many directions he can go from this point, because he is arguably the most bankable figure in MXGP right now by virtue of his age. I mean, the cliche of the sky's the limit. I mean, Coenen's in a fantastic, in a profitable position right now.
And as I tend to do, I spread the joy. I messaged Strybos and said, I'm sad that Coenen has already tied you in GP wins. So
I'm sure you replied straight away for that one.
I'm really just all about spreading the joy to everyone who I can possibly get near. So look forward to seeing me at the Nations. Everyone.
I would have liked to have been in the paddock, Lewis, because of Jeffrey Herlings finishing second. I mean, Herlings contributing 5 GP wins to the season, in which I think he only contested 15 of the 20 GPs. So like a 1/3 win rate is pretty damn good. But, if that was his last Grand Prix for Red Bull KTM or his last major race, I'm sure it would have been emotional around the team and some of the people that have been with him since he's been 15 years old. 16 years of Grand Prix racing with one outfit. People like Valentino Ragni, Dirk Grubel, I don't think would have made the trip, but he would have been there perhaps in Turkey or, the last sort of Western European round. I would like to have sort of got a feeling for that, because I think it's the end of arguably the most impressionable chapter in GP history.
100% agree. No further comment. That was brilliantly put. And as far as I know, I don't think that we would maybe get a Herlings farewell post, if we're going to get one, which is alleged, until December the 31st sort of time. I don't think that it's coming anytime soon. I think that if we were going to get an announcement about Herlings moving teams, that's a January the 1st job, not anytime sooner. But to that point, KTM PR department is going to be busy, because they've got to do a Herlings farewell, massively poignant, a Vial farewell, massively poignant. I don't want to understate what Vial has done with KTM, because I think that Herlings was always destined to be great. You could have put him on a unicycle and he would have been a world champion. I feel like what KTM did with Vial is maybe a better indicator of how robust and successful the program is. So for Vial to depart is massive, I think. And I think that cannot be understated. And then a farewell to Chase Sexton. There's a lot of farewells at KTM.
I don't think. It's not really KTM style to do a farewell. I think the case of Herlings would be something that would be celebrated, just because of the history he's contributed towards the racing story for the company. But I mean, Vial as well. I mean, KTM took him from like a middling EMX rider to a world champion in the space of 2 years. He's also given the company back, 4 titles in 7 years.
Yeah.
So I agree with you there, Lewis. He's been an important racer for the company, but Herlings is on another level. I mean, we're talking like Hall of Fame, and if he has that alleged move to HRC, then Herlings will chase more wins, potentially more titles. But after that, I really wouldn't be surprised to see him putting on like an orange cap or an orange shirt somewhere and doing some sort of work. It's very hard with an athlete like Herlings who just craves mileage on a motorcycle and victory. You do wonder what he's going to do post Grand Prix. I can't see him riding anywhere, but I can see him taking a huge break, eating as much as he wants to eat, and eventually coming back to help some sort of young Dutch rider.
I think once Herlings retires, if we want him on this podcast, we're going to have to get a bigger screen.
Chance.
Because I think he's going to eat a lot. No, I know what he's doing. Wait, I'm trying to think how I can say this without saying too much. No. So I said to him at some point, I think we need to start planning for, let's start thinking about you after racing. What can you do? How can you make money? There's a lot of money to be made. Let's start planning strategically. And his reply was basically something like, I won't be going anywhere near a paddock. You'll find me at his favourite hotel in Dubai, which he goes to every single off season.
Right, okay.
So there we go.
Lewis, seeing as you're on the pulse with Herlings, any chance he actually gets on the nations team, or is it 99% no?
A few people have messaged me since the weekend saying ask him, and I haven't asked him because I don't think so. I don't know. There would be some sort of rumbling by now, surely. I mean, it's not happening. It's not happening. They've remained steadfast since day one, and so why change now? If they were going to change, it would have come after Arnhem.
Yeah, and the bike wouldn't probably need to be on its way by now, I'd imagine.
But I will say, with the recent Team USA injuries, if Herlings was on that team, I think the Netherlands would now be my favourites. I really do.
Yeah. Well, still for me it's Australia, but yeah, I mean the Netherlands are shoo-in for. I mean they're probably going for the podium anyway, I think. But with Herlings there, again, one of the only European riders with experience around Ironman too.
Yeah, and also I think it's important to reference that someone of importance in the American paddock said they've never seen a rider handle a departure from a manufacturer as classy as Jeffrey Herlings has. What a man.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. If he is, which we don't know. No one knows. What a man. Just great guy. Just really... how far we've come from 2012 when he was swearing on live TV and killing people on track, and how far we've come.
He was a very, not misguided, but confused teenager, I think.
Yeah. It'll all come out in his book, which... we'll have to fly to Dubai to write. We don't need to talk about Tim too much because he has one more race with Honda HRC. So, we can do the Tim retrospective after the Nations and in the off-season. Congrats to Febvre once more.
First podium, though. We have to mention that.
For Tim?
Yeah, first podium since he came back from injury, wasn't
China.
It?
He was second in China.
Oh, God, yes. Sorry, way off.
So Yamaha.
I think I was thinking of Fernandez. Right, yeah.
No hokey pokey jokes on this occasion.
Hokey cokey.
We've done it again.
Right.
we're straight back into the debate. Renault still hasn't made his decision, Ducati and Yamaha. Although, in fact, he has made his decision. He wants to go to Ducati quite aggressively.
Maybe it's not his decision.
Yamaha don't want to let him out. Yamaha want him to pay to get out, very similar to the Prado situation. And I've had 3 different people tell me it's going to court now. Or it's looking like it's going to go that way. It seems quite aggressive, the whole situation, which if this is all completely accurate, if you're Yamaha and a rider wants out, similar to Kawasaki and Prado again, if a rider wants out that badly, are you really going to keep him there against his will? Because A, I don't think that's the most productive environment. And B, I'm not sure I want that negativity around Tim Geiser, who is going to be very easily influenced as he gets to grips with this Yamaha, if he's got a teammate who's ridden the bike for the last 10 years and Tim comes in and goes, I like the way he does this. And then Renault goes, 4 years ago, it did it way better. You should have ridden that. Like, that sort of energy doesn't help in testing, and it's not productive. So I'm surprised that Yamaha want Renault so badly. And truth be told, the investment they've sunk into Renault has yielded no results 450-wise. So strike it off as a bad investment and let him go. But this is holding up the paddock a lot.
And it's just a waste of money as well. And the only thing, again, mitigating factors, the only thing could be investment from certain partners in Yamaha's racing setup because of Renault. Unlikely, maybe, but then perhaps the contract situation is also a Yamaha corporate policy. That's something else to take into consideration. I don't know. But like you say, Lewis, if a rider doesn't want to be there, what kind of benefits are there to shackling him to another year of the contract? But in other ways, should riders have power like that to be able to snap contracts? Because it also just derails strategy from manufacturers and people who are invested in the MXGP project. So tough call. But yeah, like you say, hurry up and make your mind up, or try and sort it out, because if Renault goes red, then who stays blue? Or if he stays blue, then who goes red?
Yep.
And there are people like Glenn Coldenhoff, who confirmed third place in the championship, giving a very frank and honest interview post-race to saying, I'm, one of my best sort of career seasons and I'm in limbo.
How about this? So let's say Renault leaves. If you're Yamaha, do you reward Calvin Vlanderen, top Yamaha in the series? I think that deserves some applause. Most trophies for Yamaha, out and out. Aside from GP wins, he was the best Yamaha 450 rider. Do you reward him with a new contract, or do you swoop in and take the bronze medal and Glenn Coldenhoff, who is at the end of his career, would probably only do a 1-year deal? It would be a very short-sighted decision. But do you go that route?
Yeah, good question. Vlanderen's already there, so why not just give him another year? It depends also who maybe the technicians want to work with to develop the next sort of version of the sort of YZ450F. That's another thing. And maybe Vlanderen's feedback is nowhere near as good as Glenn's in the eyes of the suspension technicians and the Japanese. You have to feel that Yamaha are a little bit of a crossroads. Yes, they're going to have one of the premier athletes in MXGP next year, but their organization behind the scenes, what the team makeup is like, who's calling the shots, stuff like that has to be reevaluated. And I wonder if we'll see some changes for the next year or two.
Yeah, let me say this, and I'm going to see these people in 2 weeks, but in the interest of reporting accurately, the disillusion quite widespread about Yamaha's potential, what Yamaha's doing, is only getting worse. I'm struggling to find positivity about Yamaha in the MXGP paddock. I really am. As I said to someone in Vegas, I was talking to someone at Yamaha about Yamaha's differences from MXGP to America, how it's unbelievable that at its core, Yamaha is Yamaha. So it should never get so bad, because it's a great manufacturer with all this history and whatnot. And it's almost confusing how it's become so toxic, poisonous.
Yeah, also we said before, super invested in motocross. I mean, they're not doing a Suzuki and just pulling everything out after like a sort of a lean season or two. I think that's to be applauded from the off. But it's hard to find sort of many positives just based on sort of hearsay, Lewis. But then that's of course a folly, because there could be plans in place to sort of reinvigor Yamaha's MXGP effort, and signing Geiger is like one of the rolls of the dice, because that could go extremely well, or it could also go the other way and Tim doesn't really get on with the bike. But that's also going to be one of the sort of, really curious things about next season.
Once again, the winner in all of this is Louis Vosters, because outcast from Yamaha and proving that actually he was arguably the one holding the manufacturer together. It's really gone brilliantly for him, and I'll be honest, I don't think that I didn't think it was gonna go this way. I thought that Louis Vosters was running a great team, but I thought that it was gonna continue as it was, and it's just not. Again, we've ended this season, Fantic outscored and were more successful than Yamaha, and that is not good for anyone in blue. But
Mattia Guadagnini, out of Ducati. So it seems, his statement in the post-race press release saying that's it, goodbye. The kind of silly season is just stretching on. It's going to be a silly off-season.
So Guadagnini has two options as far as I know. One is JWR Honda, which I think is maybe the favourite right now. I don't know if that means JWR would go back to doing a full MXGP calendar or if they would continue to do 75% MXGP and some Pro Motocross. And then also, I haven't really dug into this much, but Guadagnini was telling people he has an option for American Outdoors, but it's not very good. So it's probably unlikely he's going to do it. And actually, maybe I shouldn't have said that part in case the party is listening. He said it's great. He's really excited. He didn't say this to me. It's just hearsay. So no one knows. But he can't wait. Trust me, he's excited. So I don't know what that is, though, because I've not heard anything. Obviously, we know that Koldenoff is talking to Suzuki and I don't think I've ever put this out, and Club MX about an outdoor deal. So
it'd be cool if he gets back on a Suzuki.
Yeah, I do. I think. Okay. Again, don't know if I'm oversharing here. The Suzuki Japan people were very excited at the possibility of welcoming Glenn back. Like, I think Glenn's history and obviously he took his first 450 win with Suzuki in 2015, some 10 years ago. Oh, you froze, so I just kept rambling. Oh. What were you saying?
I think we were saying the same thing, in 2015 Latvia GP, Glenn won on the RMZ 450.
Yeah, but for whatever reason, that still hasn't got to a point where it's done. I think because Suzuki still haven't signed Ken Roczen, and their commitment is we're not signing any riders until Roczen is done. But I don't know if you saw my article last week. I kind of hope you didn't, because I don't really like your critical eye. I don't know if I'm good enough to be read by Adam Wheeler. But Roczen said Suzuki are kind of back a little bit. More communication with the Japanese than ever, more interest, more input, and Roczen feels like this is the start of a resurgence. So,
I doubt it.
Wow.
I'm very skeptical you can tell when it comes to
Kenny.
Suzuki.
You can tell this to Kenny in 2 weeks.
That's only... less than 2 years ago he was waving a Kickstarter on the podium. I mean, come on.
No, I'd argue that was a low point for Suzuki in their history when they became the gimmick manufacturer.
Lewis, I've got an MXGP question for you. 10 different riders on the podium this year. And
really?
Yeah, and who, is the most unexpected from that, would you say? He only popped up with one podium finish.
Okay, hold on. First of all, let me try and name the 10. Because I don't know where you get the MXGP stat link. I have to make my own because I don't get it. So I don't...
Go on.
Herlings, Coenen, Febvre, Geyser, Fernandez, Renault, Vlaanderen. So that's 7.
Yeah.
Sewer.
Yeah.
Who can forget? So I'm missing 2. Not Jonas. No one else at Yamaha.
Koldenoff.
Bonacorsi.
One more. There you go.
Yeah, once you said Koldenoff for I went through Fantic and I got there.
So Fantic are the most successful team, right? I mean, HRC had their riders on the podium, so Geiger and Fernandez. Red Bull KTM did as well with Herlings and Coenen. That leaves Fantic with all 3 riders taking podium finishes.
No, Bogus wasn't.
That's not right, is it?
No.
Bogus wasn't, yes. Oh.
You're the one with the names in front of you, Adam.
I know. I just had a brain fade when it came to... For some reason, I thought Vlaanderen was a Fantic.
Oh, well, they probably...
maybe thinking of next year.
No, or maybe not. No, I think Fantic... I mean, we kind of did it a lot earlier in the season, so I think Fantic, what they did cannot be understated. However, I still remain skeptical about next year. Jackie Martin's, of course, running the team. I don't know. What do you know? So I don't really understand. How are they involved in MotoGP? Because you seem to talk to Fantic people a lot, but there's no way Fantic has a MotoGP team, is there?
No, they're part of the Moto2 category, which is Triumph 765 motorcycles, but then various teams rebrand them. So Fantic have a team, Mastercamp Yamaha have a team, Red Bull KTM IO have a team. So they're not actually the machinery, but they're branded as such. So Fantic, pushing for GP wins in Moto2. So they have quite a sort of sizable presence there, I guess you could say. Whereas they actually have their machinery in what, motocross and enduro as well. I'm not sure if they're in enduro.
So is their investment in MotoGP significant? I'm essentially trying to get a read on whether Fantic has money.
I mean, that's a mystery. But the involvement in MotoGP is just a brand awareness exercise.
Yeah, I just think. Well, I can't imagine the reception to that's very positive, is it? Because like ultimately everyone's like, well, we know we can see through what you're doing. It's not a Fantic bike.
Yeah, but it's not as if they're going around with a big Triumph flag sticking off it. It's still, okay, Aaron Canet won on a Fantic. There's still, that brand association. That's all it's about.
Well, maybe Prado and Kawasaki should try this next year. Get a KTM.
I mean, Kawasaki and World Superbike. Kawasaki and World Superbike were one of the major players, but they don't exist anymore. It's a Bimota. So it can be quite confusing to try and predict what Kawasaki are going to do next.
Well, I guess watch this space then. There's a lot. I think a lot of people are a little bit gun shy about Fantic, and I don't know. I feel the same. I'm right there with them. And this is where maybe being associated with Louis Voster's team is to their detriment, because Louis Voster's team's reputation is so prominent that they would almost undoubtedly get all the credit. So no one is really certain how much of a success is down to Fantic now. As I sit here saying that, I honestly cannot really give an opinion because I don't know.
No, I think Coldenough's done a good job in praising the development of the machinery and the variations from the Yamaha platform. I mean, that's underpinned a lot of his success in this year. So I think he's done a good job, not just for showing that the bike is competitive, but also that it is slightly alternative to, the Japanese package or platform. So in that respect, it's good. Now, if you were offered a deal representing Fantic, I think a lot of riders would take that. Whereas before, they might think, well, am I on a kind of a TM sort of thing here? Or a beta, perhaps?
But what if next year they end up with which I think is really quite possible, they end up with a lower tier lineup like a Van Donick and a Gertz? I think that's the odds-on favourite right now.
They can't aspire to a 2025 series of results, but I mean, they didn't win a Grand Prix. Koldenough didn't win a Grand Prix.
No, he won a moto.
But he took enough podiums and got third in the championship. That might be a bit too much of a stretch with full respect, like a lower tier team or set of riders. But the fact that also the bike is capable should motivate riders. And if it's been run by Jackie Martins, then it's also a team with a lot of experience. It's not just some, say European Championship team who's stepping up.
Yeah, but Jackie Martins...
I think we have to be quite encouraged by it, Lewis.
Jackie Martins has a bit of a reputation of being a penny pincher. So I think there's some trepidation that if Jackie Martins isn't going to spend the money, will Fantic have the money to spend?
Listen, I think any rider would rather be on a Fantic in Jackie's team than say on a non-HRC Honda, perhaps.
Oh, good debate. I like that. Well, obviously there isn't. Well, you're looking at Honda SR Moto Blues in that case.
Yeah, winner of the privateer team.
Yes. Do you have
MXGP Awards?
Do you have 10 minutes to keep going, or would you like to end? Because I've got some points on this as well.
Oh yeah, go on. I mean, I've got 10 minutes. Go on, but we have been yapping on for a long time. And also, I want to
1 hour and 28
very quickly
minutes.
Before you get onto your points, I want to give props to Lottie Van Drunen as well, who won a second WMX title. That was the third World Championship that had to be decided in Darwin, and a part of me was hoping that Chiara Fontanesi would take another one, purely because her goal was to be the first mother to have achieved the feat, which would have been something quite cool and distinctive. But Lottie Van Drunen, still a teenager. How old is she? 18. 17? Yeah, definitely like a standout athlete for the series and the discipline. I do wonder where she's going to go from here, because does she try and stay in the series and emulate Fontanesi's haul of 5-6 titles? There's not really many other places to go, sadly, outside of WMX. But yeah, I mean, that was like another finale decider, which the women have thrown up quite a few of in the last few years.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of that, I want to circle back because I meant to touch on this. You mentioned at the very start of this podcast, all those hours ago, that we've had a lot of final round deciders lately. So is the qualifying points helping? How could it be helping? It doesn't make sense, but it almost feels like since we got qualifying points, it's come down to the last round a lot more often.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just because there's points on tap, there's points available.
Yeah, more. Yeah, you would think it would work the opposite, wouldn't you? Because you would say that, like a rider like Jeffrey Herlings would be able to pull away by even more points now.
Yeah, I don't know how it would. Also, if you took them away, would it still be that close? I mean, you did the stat and the analysis for Jorge Prado, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was, and also Febvre was mentioning this. He said it's different when you're leading a championship as to when you're in pursuit of one, and we saw that with Prado in 2023. When the second half of the season, Febvre was taking the majority of the moto wins and gobbling up the points, but then Prado was just there week in, week out and got the championship done. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's more room for error, and that's why we have to give even more praise for these champions.
Yeah.
Or actually, maybe I've said that wrong. There's less room for error because if you drop the ball in a Saturday qualifying race and concede 10 points, then look, the championships have been decided by 10, 20 points.
Yeah, I would be interested now to add up the points. I don't think it would make a difference MXGP, but MX2 to see if the qualifying points were what won it for Langenfelder, or if actually that was the reason why De Wolf was even within striking distance. But you mentioned the MXGP Awards. This is the first year that they've done the private team award in each class. And I'm very curious on your take because in one hand, it's in front's way of trying to encourage the satellite teams to keep going and almost a thank you to them. But on the other hand, I feel like it's almost like a gift not worth giving and almost a slap in the face.
Well, you have to do something with it. I mean, give them a prize or get them on the podium or do something. There's no
there was
point
no
just
cash prize, was there?
Yeah, well, I don't know what the actual recompense is, but just to mention it in the sort of third or fourth paragraph of a press release, that was the only way I found out because I didn't watch the whole award show.
Yeah, well, I don't know why I did. Well, that's weird from me.
But I think the Motor Blues team, isn't there also like co-sponsors? I mean, don't they have a sponsor that also sponsored the series? It does seem a little bit like a bit back scratching there. I apologize if I'm wrong.
No, because are you not
is
thinking
it like Ship to Cycle or something like that?
No, they're off that team this year. They're actually they're actually with factory Kawasaki now.
Oh right, okay.
So they won the World Championship as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just feels like
got a mention on the podcast too.
It feels maybe they want to sponsor us. It feels like I don't know what the word is. I've got like a phrase on the tip of my tongue. It feels almost like patronising.
Participation trophy?
Yeah, or that. Like, it doesn't feel like it carries much merit because ultimately, if not Honda SR Moto Blues, who are you giving it to?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, teams like Standing Construct would have been in contention for this.
In the good old days.
Yeah, who else am I thinking of?
Well, Jackie Martins, but he didn't go to Australia.
Yeah, or Isaac Gifting, his efforts this year, that has to bring some profile.
Yeah, you know what? I'm very surprised that Isaac Gifting, JK Racing Yamaha didn't win that award instead.
There's some sort of unsung hero or lead privateer. Okay. But then how do you really draw a line?
So we know that In Front likes to, motivate people in different ways. Honda SR Moto Blues Motul lost Horgmo, they lost Ferrato. They went overseas with Prenires when they really didn't have to. So I wonder if this award was like thanks for coming. We know you didn't have to. I bet that was it.
Yeah, I mean, In Front do provide a certain level of freight to make it as affordable and possible. I don't know. I don't want to say easy because it's still quite a substantial investment for teams to go that far. But there is some sort of assistance. But then, at the start of the year, they have the OATs, the official approved teams. Maybe they have to have some sort of distinction for what is a privateer team in the future, and then also make a big deal out of it because we mentioned this on the podcast. I think if Moto Blues have been honoured in the MXGP Awards, then there should be even more of that.
Yeah, and then Van Venrooy KTM won it in MX2, which is actually I would have been very curious. I don't remember who. I don't remember who claimed that award because they didn't go, obviously, because Cas Volk, and that's a whole nother sector of mystery a little bit. I think they were a little bit disillusioned with Cas Volk's effort output, and I don't know what Cas Volk's doing now. He was kind of destined for KTM factory status, and that seems to be in the bin now.
Well, again, we still need to wait for KTM to finalise some sort of planning, but not just for the factory teams, but also who they're going to support.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that is true. But no, it did make me laugh a little bit. Just it felt not exactly great. But yeah, Van Venlo KTM didn't even go to Australia and they won it. So I guess that debunks my Moto Blues Motul theory. Anything else?
I don't know.
I'm enjoying
anything
this.
else? I had the feeling, when the championships have been done, of like the same thing every year, of like this story closing and this sort of series that you've been following for months, through different sort of conditions. It was kind of apt, really, that the weather was so shit and absolutely poured down, because it feels like MXGP has been battered again by some of the extreme climate change, I guess, we're seeing in Europe, where things are either boiling hot, or when it rains, it doesn't just rain, it pours.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard also to stand back and get a proper distance and say, well, how is MXGP in 2025? Again, it feels, if you want to take the temperature of the paddock and get the feeling from it, the team managers, I want to say it's kind of in a similar place to it's been in the last few years, in terms of the teams feeling they need a bit more support, but then just the ridiculous nature of the movements and the swapping of brands and riders and stuff this year. It just feels like the sensationalism, to use that word again, that we see sometimes in society and what's going on in politics and whatever else, is also invading motocross. I don't know. It would be good to get to Ironman and talk to some people and say, listen, how do you feel about MXGP? Because I think the entertainment spectacle on the track has made little steps forward. The contests themselves, of course, you can't ask for more than like both categories going down to the last motors and last laps. I'm curious of the health of the stasis of the championship.
Yeah, you could argue that it's kind of at its lowest ebb now, simply because we don't have teams like Standing Construct, and it is very much just a factory rider championship. So you could argue it's not going to get much worse, because, and this is going to be quite controversial, if any of the satellite teams went away now, I'm not sure that they're necessarily going to be missed that much, because they're not contributing that much. Whereas Standing Construct going was a massive loss.
Also, riders in the gate, Lewis, that's one inescapable symptom of health. If you have a packed gate, and, Infinite Motor Racing keep banging the drum saying we don't need to have 40 riders at each GP. And I think if you're going to have that elitist approach, then fine. But then at least have 30. I mean, at least have enough so the riders, are fighting to score points. Again, I'm going to repeat it. Do points down to 15. Make some fucking value on a GP point. Maybe that will also change the outcome of the championships and how close they are. I mean, I don't know, but you need to enrichen almost like the second half of the pack somehow.
Yeah, you need to make it so it's worth talking about. We need to be on this podcast going, well, look at that. X rider got their first point of the season. They finally got it. That's good. But in theory, or in retrospect, the cutoff of who got points and who didn't is irrelevant to everyone, because it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Just worrying about factory teams is a worrying strategy, I think, for the future, because you might say, look at Triumph, look at Ducati coming in. Maybe there's another manufacturer who's going to make a motocross bike. But then that's just a very precarious way to go racing, I think. I can remember Giuseppe Longo years ago saying, I don't mind if the whole gates were kind of full of KTMs. If it was almost like a one-make series, there was that kind of inclination.
Yeah.
But, now MXGP has more diversity than any other world championship discipline, I think, in terms of the brands. It's something you have to safeguard, and I think the participation and the role of the teams is one of the, I don't know, the things highest on the priority list for the future, perhaps.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that about the diversity of manufacturers, because with the exception of the times where Coenen and Herlings shared the podium, and of course Fernandez and Geiser last week, we would have had 3 different manufacturers on the MXGP podium more often than not this year, off the top of my head, because only Febvre from Kawasaki and, Renault and Vlaanderen never shared it and whatnot. So that is a sign of health. I think a lot of MotoGP and F1 would kill for that sort of parity and equal.
Well, not parity, almost like just different characters, different. If you're having an Italian Beta in the top 10, you've got a Ducati, factory Ducati, from sort of this force of road racing. You've got the Japanese. I mean, if Suzuki can make some sort of comeback, or they're still racing in SMX, there is potential there. And, like a private or a satellite team should be able to lease some Suzukis if they're going to be making some upgrades, and be able to go MXGP racing realistically. And that would also bolster the series, I think.
Yeah, I said this about SMX as well at the weekend. In the first 250 moto, 5 different manufacturers were battling for the lead. That's, again, in any other sport, that would be hammered. That would be the headline almost. And for some reason, we're indifferent. I think it's because we aren't equipment-led, so I think we're indifferent to it. But I almost would like to lead a charge where we're not. I don't know. I mean... But in hindsight, to contradict myself, I think the manufacturer standings mean fuck all. I don't care about that at all. So I don't know.
You can't even find them, I think, on the official website. I was looking to see, where KTM were in the Manufacturers Championship in MXGP, and couldn't spot them.
Oh, I saw that KTM posted that they won it. Yeah, if you click, it did load. It just was a bit dead. KTM amassed 1,026 points. So we've got our first plus 1,000 pointer.
Oh, okay.
Congrats to them. A lot to discuss. Honestly, I have to say, across SMX and MXGP, a fascinating weekend, a brilliant weekend for the sport. I could do hours and hours and hours and hours of podcasting about all that happened. And I think that, for the most part, the sport, both in Australia and the United States, was reflected in a positive light, despite some negative moments, i.e. cancellation of second moto and Haiden Deegan. So, my final point, I do find it quite hilarious that the second motos at the first SMX in Charlotte were cancelled, and there was just mass anger and discourse, and it was the most controversial thing ever. It was almost unfathomable how angry everyone was. Second moto gets cancelled in Australia, and no one cares. Everyone's just like, yeah, great decision. Thanks, guys. Well done. Really glad you did that. We're really proud of you. Like, how that says a lot to me about the difference between American sport and world sport, I guess. I don't know. The culture difference. I think that's interesting in itself. But that's a topic for another day. So, as I said, MXGP calendar this week. We are back next week for a Nations preview, correct?
When are we going to do it, Lewis? Are we going to do it in Indianapolis on Thursday?
No. Let's do it.
No?
Let's do it like this. Monday? Or early?
It might have to be Tuesday. I mean, we have to get a bit close to the race. I mean, what if Jeffrey announces his inclusion on Tuesday?
As much as I would like that, Adam, because I've not got Jeffrey, I've not got Ben, I've not got Chase. There's almost no point in me going. That's out. But yeah, Monday or Tuesday sort of time.
Okay.
And then...
If people want it. Let us know.
So we'll do Nations preview Monday or Tuesday, and then Thursday or Friday we'll do a mini paddock beat, which will, to be honest, maybe be more MXGP led, because we're going to learn a lot about the Renault situation and whatnot. Yeah. So we'll probably be unpacking a lot of that, but a lot to look forward to, a lot to come. Thank you everyone for listening. Congratulations to Romain Febvre and Simon Langenfelder, deserving champions. Nice to see different champions as well. That's great for the health of the series and sport, and gave us a lot to talk about. But there's even more to discuss coming up with the Monster Energy FIM Motocross of Nations just 10 days away. So stay tuned, stay engaged, and we will see you real... Oh! Thank you to ProX Racing Parts for their support on this podcast. Really thankful and proud to be associated with such a quality brand. Of course, Honda SR, Moto Blues, Motul use ProX Racing Parts because that's how they make the difference to the factory teams, and that's how they compete and win the MXGP Private Team Awards. So thank you, pro-x.com, and to Polisport as well. Of course, we will see you real soon. Thank you once again, and stay tuned next week in Indianapolis.